he's just, you can't dislike him. He had the best smile in the world, the best smile. He would smile at you and, you just like...
The BBC had promised him a gift, Ozzy Osbourne. Coming Home, a 1-hour documentary capturing the rock legend's final years. It was supposed to be raw, intimate, and unforgettable. But at the last minute, just hours before airtime, the film was gone, pulled, erased from the schedule. No warning, no explanation. Viewers turned on their TVs, and instead of Ozzy's life flashing before their eyes, they got Fake or Fortune. A pleasant enough art series, but not what anyone wanted. The silence was deafening. Online forums filled with anger. What happened to the Ozzy documentary? Fans demanded. The BBC mumbled something vague. It has been moved in the schedule. Moved to when? Nobody knew. But the whispers started almost instantly. And within hours, the truth leaked. It wasn't the BBC that pulled the plug. It was Sharon Osbourne. And that changed everything. Because if you know Sharon Osbourne, you know nothing she does is random. Nothing she does is accidental. Every decision is calculated. To protect Ozzy, to protect the family, and yes, to protect the Osbourne brand. So why, just weeks after her husband's death, would she block a tribute that millions were aching to see? The answer, like everything the Osbourne story, is layered, complicated, and dripping with gossip. The official line versus the real story. The BBC tried to play it safe. Our sympathies are with the Osbourne family at this difficult time. We are respecting their wishes to wait before airing this very special film. Polite, sanitized, respectful. But what does that really mean? Insiders began to talk. Some said Sharon had seen a rough cut of the documentary and hated it. It made Ozzy look too weak, too vulnerable, one source claimed. Sharon didn't want the world to see him that way. She wanted Ozzy remembered as the wild man, the indestructible prince of darkness, not a man in decline. Others suggested it wasn't about Ozzy at all. It was about Sharon. The documentary reportedly included brutally honest interviews, not just from Ozzy's children, Jack and Kelly, but from bandmates and friends who had been in the trenches with him. Some spoke about Sharon's iron grip on Ozzy's life, her constant control, her ruthless decisions. It wasn't flattering. And if Sharon smelled danger, she acted fast. Think about Sharon's history. This is a woman who turned her family into reality TV royalty with the Osbournes. This is the woman who managed Ozzy through decades of chaos, who went to war with record labels, journalists, and even family members to protect her husband's career. This is a woman who clashed publicly with Iron Maiden's manager, who feuded with fellow TV hosts, who has never backed down from a fight. If she didn't like what she saw in that BBC edit, there was no way she was letting it air. And so, the BBC folded. At the end of the day, they wanted access to the Osbourne family. They wanted future projects. They didn't want to be blacklisted, and Sharon knew it. The fan reaction, grief meets suspicion. Fans weren't having it. On TikTok, people stitched old clips of Ozzy singing Crazy Train, his voice raw but powerful, with news headlines about the documentary delay. They're hiding something, one video declared. It went viral overnight. Twitter threads accused Sharon of manipulating Ozzy's legacy for money, for attention, or simply to maintain control. Some were sympathetic. Maybe Sharon isn't ready to see it herself. One fan posted, "We can wait. She's grieving." But others were harsher. This isn't about grief. This is about Sharon controlling the narrative like she always has. Ozzy belonged to the fans as much as he belonged to her. And that's the painful truth. Ozzy wasn't just Sharon's husband. He wasn't just Kelly and Jack's dad. He belonged to millions. To every kid who ever blasted Paranoid in their bedroom. To every fan who lined up in the rain for a ticket. To every metalhead who tattooed a bat or a cross in his honor. To deny those people their tribute felt, to some like a betrayal. The money question. Then came the inevitable gossip about money. Why let the BBC show the documentary for free when Netflix, Apple, or Paramount Plus would pay millions for it? After all, Sharon is no stranger to negotiation. She knows the value of footage, of exclusivity, of timing. People pointed out that Paramount Plus already had a documentary lined up, Ozzy Osbourne. No escape from now. Was Sharon holding the BBC's film back so it wouldn't clash? Was she playing networks against each other? Was this grief or business? It wouldn't be the first time. Sharon has always been the deal maker, the strategist. Some fans even said she was protecting Ozzy's estate. Why give something away cheaply when it could bring in money to support the family for years? But to others, it felt cold, calculated. They wanted closure. They wanted Ozzy's story now, not later. The hidden footage theory, then the wildest theory took over. What if the BBC film contained something Sharon didn't want anyone to see? Rumors spread that the documentary had captured Ozzy's final rehearsals, moments where he broke down, moments where he begged the cameras to stop rolling. You have to remember, one former producer wrote online, these documentaries film everything. hours and hours of footage. If Sharon stopped it, there's a reason. Something was in there she couldn't allow to air. Fans speculated about arguments between Sharon and the children, about private hospital scenes, about things Ozzy said in his last days that contradicted the family's public story. None of it confirmed, of course, but speculation is oxygen online. And Sharon, by silencing the film, had poured gasoline on the fire. The control factor. At the heart of it all lies one truth. Sharon Osbourne has always controlled Ozzy's image. From the moment she took over as his manager in the 1980s, she shaped the myth. She pushed him back on stage when others thought he was finished. She crafted his madman image, his reality TV persona, his survival story. And in many ways, she saved him. Without Sharon, Ozzy might not have lived to see his 40s, let alone his 70s. But that control came at a price. Sharon decided what the public saw, and she wasn't about to stop now. The BBC may have thought they were making a loving tribute, but Sharon saw it differently. To her, it was the last word on Ozzy Osbourne, and she wasn't ready to let anyone else write it. The human side, Sharon in grief. And yet, for all the gossip, all the speculation, all the conspiracy theories, there's also the human angle. Sharon loved Ozzy for over 40 years. They fought, they split, they reconciled, they survived scandals, affairs, health crises, addictions. They built an empire together. Now he's gone, and Sharon is alone. Friends say she spends hours staring at old photos, that she cries at night, that her strength in public is just a mask. One insider said, Sharon couldn't watch the documentary without breaking. It was too raw, too real. She needed time. That's all this is. Maybe that's the truth. Maybe it's not about money or image or control. Maybe it's just about a widow not ready to see her husband's last days. It wasn't just the fans who were left reeling. It wasn't just the network scrambling for an emergency replacement. The shockwave hit closer to home, right at the center of the Osbourne family itself. Because Ozzy's death didn't just leave a grieving widow. It left 3 children, Jack, Kelly, and Amy, who had lived their entire lives and stormed their father's fame and their mother's power. And now, for the first time, the cracks between them began to show. Jack, the keeper of the footage. Jack Osbourne has always been the archivist of the family. From the moment the Osbournes' reality show turned them into global icons, Jack became the one who loved cameras, editing rooms, and storytelling. He built a career around documentaries, paranormal shows, and family projects. He was the one who said yes when producers came knocking. He was the one who convinced Ozzy to let cameras in again and again. So when the BBC documentary was announced, people assumed Jack had a hand in it. And he did. His fingerprints were all over it. He worked with the producers, offered insights, even dug through hours of never-before-seen footage. To him, this wasn't just a TV show. This was his father's life story, told honestly, from beginning to end. Imagine his shock when Sharon killed it at the last minute. Insiders say Jack was furious. He didn't understand why, one source whispered. He thought the film was beautiful, heartbreaking but beautiful. He thought it was what Ozzy deserved. But Sharon saw it differently. And Jack, once again, had to watch his mother pull the strings. But Jack's problem has always been loyalty. He loves his dad, but he also loves his mom. He knows Sharon isn't just stubborn, she's strategic. And so, even as anger boiled in him, he bit his tongue. He didn't go public. He didn't fight her openly. He swallowed it, just as he's done for years. Kelly, the defender of Sharon. Kelly Osbourne, on the other hand, has never been shy about taking sides. And when it comes to her mom, she's always ready to defend her. Kelly has lived her entire life being compared to Sharon. Her wit, her temper, her sharp tongue. She inherited it all. So when the BBC fiasco exploded, Kelly didn't hesitate. She told friends that Sharon's decision was the right one, that the family needed time, that the world didn't deserve Ozzy at his most vulnerable. For Kelly, it wasn't about hiding the truth. It was about protecting dignity. But here's the catch. Kelly has her own scars. She's seen how the public treats weakness. She's been mocked for her appearance, her addictions, her breakdowns. She knows the cruelty of headlines. And maybe deep down when she defended Sharon, she wasn't just protecting Ozzy. She was protecting herself. Of course, fans didn't see it that way. Online, Kelly became the target of criticism. She's just covering for her mother. One tweet said, Kelly is as controlling as Sharon. Another comment cut deeper. The Osbournes don't care about Ozzy's fans. They only care about themselves. But if you know Kelly, you know she doesn't care what strangers think. Her loyalty is to family. And if Sharon said no, Kelly would back her no matter the cost. Amy, the invisible Osbourne. And then there's Amy, the forgotten Osbourne, the daughter who famously refused to be part of the Osbournes reality show, the one who walked away from the cameras, who chose a private life instead of a public circus. Amy rarely speaks about the family. She rarely appears with them. But insiders say she had a very different reaction to the BBC documentary drama. Amy thought it should air, one source revealed. She thought it was for the fans. She's always had a more distant perspective, because she wasn't caught up in the fame machine the way Jack and Kelly were. To her, Ozzy was a dad, yes, but he was also an icon, and icons belong to the world. That view put her at odds with Sharon, and it wasn't the first time. Amy and Sharon have clashed for years, not out of hate, but out of difference. Amy doesn't play the game. She doesn't care about controlling the narrative. She just wants the truth. And for her, blocking the documentary wasn't truth. It was manipulation. The result? A silent war inside the Osbourne family. Sharon holding the reins, Kelly backing her, Jack torn in the middle, and Amy watching from the sidelines, frustrated but unwilling to fight publicly. The family table, behind closed doors. One insider described the scene in chilling detail. After the funeral, after the cameras were gone, the family sat down at the big table in their London home. Sharon at the head, Kelly at her side, Jack opposite, Amy further down. The documentary came up. Jack said it should air. Kelly snapped back that it wasn't the right time. Amy agreed with Jack. Sharon banged her fist on the table. It's not happening. End of discussion. Silence fell. This is the Osbourne family dynamic in a nutshell. Sharon doesn't ask. She decides. Kelly defends. Jack negotiates. Amy withdraws. And through it all, Ozzy, the man they were all supposed to be honoring, is gone. The public versus private divide. What makes the situation so heartbreaking is that fans only see one side. They see Sharon on TV, holding herself together, speaking in clipped, careful sentences. They see Kelly defending her mother on Instagram. They see Jack trying to hold it all together. They don't see the tears at night, the arguments, the guilt, the second-guessing. Privately, this family is shattered. Publicly, they're a brand. And the BBC documentary became the battleground between those two realities. The gossip machine kicks in. Of course, the tabloids loved it. The Daily Mail ran stories about Osbourne family rift. The Sun speculated about Sharon cashing in on a Netflix deal. Twitter fans took sides. Hashtag Team Sharon, hashtag Team Jack, hashtag Team Amy. Suddenly, the Osbournes weren't just grieving. They were trending. And isn't that always the way? With this family, private pain always becomes public spectacle. It happened with the Osbournes reality show. It happened with Ozzy's affairs. It happened with Sharon's talk show feuds. And now, even in death, it's happening again. The children's dilemma. At the end of the day, the children face a dilemma that no son or daughter should face. How do you honor a father when your mother controls a narrative? How do you balance love for family with loyalty to truth? How do you keep peace when the world is watching every move? Jack, Kelly, and Amy don't have the answers. Not yet. But one thing is certain. Ozzy's legacy isn't just being fought over in boardrooms and editing rooms. It's being fought over the family table, in whispered arguments and long silences, in texts left unanswered and phone calls cut short. And for the fans, watching from the outside, it's both heartbreaking and addictive, because the Osbournes have always given us drama. And even now, in the shadow of death, the drama hasn't stopped. The weeks following Ozzy's funeral were a blur of grief, strategy, and quiet battles fought behind closed doors. Sharon Osbourne had paused the BBC documentary, claiming it was too soon, that the family needed space to process, and that the world didn't need to witness Ozzy's vulnerability before they were ready. Fans largely understood. Messages flooded in, offering comfort, sharing memories of Ozzy, sending prayers to Sharon, telling her to take all the time she needed. Thousands of people on social media reassured her, writing heartfelt comments like, "We just want you to heal," and "Ozzy would have wanted you to rest before anyone saw him that way." There was empathy, genuine understanding, and a weight of collective mourning that wrapped Sharon in the warmth of public consolation. But as always, a few voices were sharper, louder, and impossible to ignore. Some accused her of controlling the narrative, holding back the documentary for potential financial gain, or manipulating the story to suit her image. Critics argued that fans deserved the chance to celebrate Ozzy fully, to witness his final moments without filters. Headlines screamed, "Sharon blocks Ozzy's legacy," and "Why the Osbourne widow is denying fans closure." The backlash was real, but Sharon had learned long ago to balance both adoration and ire, to hold her ground when some cheered and others jeered. Inside the family, the tension was escalating. Jack, ever the archivist, spent his nights reviewing footage, tried to capture the essence of his father for a personal edit that might one day see the light of day. He believed in truth, in showing Ozzy as he was, both fragile and brilliant, human and legendary. Kelly, loyal to her mother, navigated the public storm with a combination of defensiveness and vulnerability, posting on Instagram and Twitter to explain that this was a family in mourning and not a spectacle for tabloids. Amy, the quietest of the siblings, remained distant but internally frustrated, believing the documentary could have been a tribute for fans that didn't compromise Ozzy's dignity. The dynamic was volatile. Arguments that had once been whispered over dinner became tense exchanges. Words held back, but simmering with emotion. Jack wanted honesty. Kelly wanted protection. Amy wanted the story to be shared without manipulation. Sharon wanted control, shielding both the family and Ozzy's memory. As days turned into weeks, the fan divide deepened. Those who understood Sharon's grief shared intimate memories of Ozzy on social media, consoling her and echoing her desire to preserve his dignity. They posted videos of Ozzy performing, laughing, or joking on the family couch, recounting tales of chaos and joy, reminding each other of the man beyond the headlines. These fans created a kind of digital hug around Sharon, sending messages of empathy and understanding. But even amidst these comforting voices, the critics were persistent. They argued that Sharon was monopolizing the narrative, refusing to let the world see the reality of Ozzy's final years. In forums, Twitter threads, and fan blogs, the debate raged on. Was Sharon protecting her family or suppressing the truth? Was this grief or calculated PR? The media picked up on every nuance. Stories circulated about how Sharon's relationship with the BBC had become strained, how Paramount Plus and Netflix were circling for access to Ozzy's remaining footage, and how Jack had quietly threatened to release his own personal cut to honor his father's memory. Journalists speculated about private family rifts, casting Amy as the rebel sibling and Kelly as a defender Sharon. Each article fueled more gossip, more online debate, more obsessive coverage. Sharon, watching it all, remained outwardly composed, but those close to her claimed she spent hours crying privately, torn between mourning and managing the legacy of her late husband. She knew the power of perception, of timing, of controlling the narrative, and she used it even as she grieved. Inside the Osbourne household, the children navigated their own emotional storms. Jack, loyal yet questioning, debated whether to confront Sharon or quietly archive footage for the future. Kelly, fiercely protective, tried to hold the family line in public, defending every decision her mother made while balancing her own grief. Amy, ever independent, watched silently, her frustration unspoken but palpable, understanding the emotional weight of the family's decisions while also desiring transparency and honesty for the fans. The family was trapped between love, duty, and a desire for truth. Every day brought new whispers. Industry insiders speculated about how Sharon might leverage the BBC delay to secure better deals with streaming platforms, to protect the family estate, or to ensure Ozzy's final story was told exactly her way. Fans dissected every Instagram post, every public appearance, every statement to gauge whether Sharon's actions were born of grief or strategy. Some found solace in her determination, seeing her as a widow protecting her family's legacy. Others criticized her, viewing the delay as a selfish act, denying the world a proper tribute. The tension between these perspectives created an obsessive fascination, a public narrative that mirrored the private storm raging within the Osbourne household. Sharon's battles were not only with the media, but within her family. She faced subtle resistance from Jack's editing work, quiet dissent from Amy's private conversations, and a constant challenge of balancing Kelly's emotional advocacy with public scrutiny. Every phone call, every meeting, every press interaction became a negotiation, a chess move in the long game of preserving Ozzy's memory. Friends and insiders watched as Sharon maneuver with the precision of a seasoned strategist, all while hiding her profound sorrow from the public eye. And through it all, the fans remained divided. The majority sent love and condolences, understanding her cry, sharing their grief, and supporting her decision. They understood that some moments, some memories, are too sacred to rush. Yet a smaller vocal minority refused to accept the delay, criticizing Sharon for withholding what they believed was a gift to the world. The tension between these groups fueled endless debate online, ensuring that the Osbourne name remained omnipresent in the media weeks after Ozzy's passing. In the end, Sharon Osbourne's choice to delay the BBC documentary was about more than television schedules. It was about grief, legacy, family loyalty, public perception, and control. It was about navigating an impossible space between honoring a life and protecting a family. And in this complex web of emotion and strategy, the Osbourne children, the fans, and the media all became players in a drama that would continue to unfold for months, perhaps years, as the world waited to see how Ozzy Osbourne's final story would finally be told. Even as the dust settled on the BBC fiasco, a new storm loomed on the horizon. Paramount Plus had been quietly finishing its feature-length documentary, Ozzy Osbourne. No Escape from Now, a film that promised raw, unfiltered access to the last years of the Prince of Darkness. Sources say the footage included moments Sharon had long tried to protect. Ozzy struggling with Parkinson's, candid hospital visits, even rare, vulnerable interviews where he admitted fear and fatigue. The very thought of these images being broadcast sent a chill down Sharon's spine. She had spent decades managing the Osbourne narrative, cultivating a legend that was larger than life, chaotic and untouchable. Ozzy was a rock god, a madman on stage, a laughing, terrifying, irreverent force of nature. And now, the world might see him frail, human, broken. Sharon could not allow that. She convened her inner circle, Friends, lawyers, former agents, and loyal media contacts gathered to hear her plan. Sharon's approach was surgical. She would strike early with PR, painting any potential leaks as exploitative. She would subtly apply pressure to Paramount, reminding them that the family's blessing was essential to the authenticity of Ozzy's story. She would also leverage Jack's loyalty, or at least a sense of filial duty, to prevent him from releasing his own private footage. "We need to control the narrative," she told him, her eyes flashing with a mix of grief and strategy. Ozzy's story isn't theirs to tell. It's ours. Inside the Osbourne household, the children felt the tension acutely. Jack, who had been quietly working on his own archival project, began questioning whether he could continue to remain silent. Every time Sharon made a call, every time she edited statements or blocked requests, he felt a growing itch of rebellion. Kelly, meanwhile, tried to mediate, supporting her mother publicly while privately whispering warnings about what the media might do next. Amy, distant as ever, shook her head at the family struggle. She had long accepted that Sharon ran the show, but she also feared that suppressing the footage could eventually backfire, turning fans against them entirely. Fans continued to flood social media with mixed reactions. The majority consoled Sharon, empathized with her grief, sending messages like, "Take all the time you need," and sharing their own memories of Ozzy to comfort her. But the minority, loud and insistent, refused to accept any delay. They criticized her, accusing her of selfishness and control. On Twitter, Reddit, and fan forums, arguments raged. Some defended Sharon, calling her a grieving widow protecting a legendary figure from undue exposure. Others lambasted her, saying the public deserved to see Ozzy fully, to celebrate his struggles alongside his triumphs. The debate was obsessive, emotional, and unrelenting. The Osbourne name trending again and again, a perfect storm for media coverage. Paramount executives, for their part, were aware of Sharon's influence and the potential backlash. Insiders revealed that phone calls had been made, legal reviews conducted, and delicate negotiations attempted. Sharon was relentless, citing the family's right to privacy, the sanctity of grief, and the importance of preserving Ozzy's legacy. Sources close to production claimed her interventions were both polite and firm, a mixture of widowly sorrow and managerial precision that left the Paramount team unsure whether they would be able to air certain footage without her blessing. The drama extended beyond production offices and fan forums. Friends reported seeing Sharon in moments of profound exhaustion, sometimes crying quietly in her bedroom, sometimes laughing hysterically at memories of Ozzy that only she could conjure. She oscillated between raw emotion and calculated strategy, grief and control intertwined in ways that made outsiders wonder where the widow ended and the manager began. Jack sometimes watched from a distance, recognizing the genius and the burden of his mother's duality. Kelly tried to maintain a steady front for the public, often breaking down in private after recording videos or posting statements. Amy, the quiet observer, occasionally broke her silence, warning friends about potential consequences if the family's narrative appeared fractured in the public eye. Meanwhile, gossip columns had a field day. Stories circulated about Sharon's media war, Jack's secret edit, Paramount's leaked footage, and the supposed Osbourne family rift. Rumors ran rampant that Sharon was negotiating personal deals with Netflix, using the BBC delay as leverage, and even hinting that a memoir might follow the documentaries to cement her own version of events. The public ate it up, dissecting every Instagram post, analyzing every interview, and speculating endlessly about what would happen next. Even the fans who consoled Sharon could feel the tension in the air. They recognized her grief, understood her desire to protect Ozzy, but couldn't help noticing the growing power struggle within the family and the media. Some reached out with messages of support that doubled as gentle warnings. "Please don't let the story be lost," and "We love Ozzy, but don't hide him too long." Others remained silent, quietly observing the unfolding drama, aware that history was being written in real time and that Sharon was both author and guardian. The media landscape was a minefield. Every outlet, from tabloids to streaming platforms, saw an opportunity to profit, to attract clicks, to sensationalize grief. Sharon navigated it all with precision. She knew which journalists to speak to, which leaks to allow, and which stories to quash. Her phone calls were relentless, her emails sharp, her presence in the public eye calculated to convey composure while masking pain. Friends who spent time with her recalled long nights of strategy meetings, interspersed with moments of vulnerability, laughter, and tears. It was a delicate balance, and Sharon executed it with experience of decades in the spotlight. As Paramount's release date drew closer, Jack began to feel the pressure. He had always wanted to honor his father faithfully, and now he feared that any premature release could distort Ozzy's memory or overshadow his own archival project. Kelly continued her dual role of defender and mediator, constantly navigating the intersection of family loyalty and public perception. Amy remained mostly in the shadows, silently judging, silently hoping, silently fearing. And the fans? They continued to oscillate between empathy and criticism. Some sent heartfelt tributes, recounting personal encounters with Ozzy, sharing how he had inspired them, consoling Sharon and respecting her decision. Others demanded immediate access to the footage, accusing Sharon of withholding the truth and monopolizing her husband's legacy. The tension between these groups created a feverish, obsessive narrative that kept the Osbourne name in headlines, social media feeds, and water-cooler conversations around the world. Through it all, Sharon held her ground. She had fought for Ozzy's career, for his image, for their family's survival, and she was not about to let anyone dictate the story now. The BBC delay was just the first move in a long, intricate strategy. Paramount and Netflix could circle all they wanted. Jack could secretly edit his footage, and fans could debate endlessly. But Sharon Osbourne remained at the center, controlling the ebb and flow of narrative, emotion, and legacy. She was grieving, yes, but she was also fighting. By the time the Paramount Plus release loomed on the horizon, the Osbourne household had become a fortress of secrecy, emotion, and simmering conflict. Sharon Osbourne, ever the strategist, moved like a general preparing for battle. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from lawyers, media contacts, and industry insiders, all coordinating to ensure that every frame of footage released would pass through her approval. Jack, caught between loyalty and truth, spent countless nights poring over the private tapes he had been collecting for years. Some friends whispered that he was tempted to leak moments of Ozzy unfiltered, moments that would show the raw humanity of a rock legend facing his mortality. Amy, distant as always, had quietly begun speaking with a select few journalists under confidentiality agreements, offering insight into her father's life from the perspective of someone who had deliberately stepped away from the limelight. Kelly oscillated between defending her mother publicly and pleading privately for calm inside the household. The family was a pressure cooker, grief and obsession intertwined, every heartbeat echoing with memories of Ozzy and the weight of legacy he had left behind. Fans continued to flood social media with reactions that were both tender and obsessive. Thousands sent heartfelt messages to Sharon, consoling her, expressing understanding, and recounting personal memories of Ozzy, stories of concerts attended, of music that had defined their lives, of moments when Ozzy's charisma had touched them in ways words could barely capture. These fans formed a digital cocoon around Sharon, offering comfort and collective empathy. But even as a majority rallied behind her, a persistent minority grew louder by the day. Release the documentary, they demanded. Stop hiding the truth, they shouted. Online threads dissected every Instagram post, every tweet, and every public appearance, reading between the lines for clues about the family's internal dynamics. Some speculated about Jack's secret edits, theorizing that he might be preparing to release a version of the footage that could challenge Sharon's authority. Others debated Amy's quiet role, her absence from public appearances, making her seem almost mythical, the unseen observer whose approval or dissent could tilt the narrative. Within the household, tension was palpable. Sharon's strategy was precise, but it carried its own cost. Friends reported that she spent long nights crying alone, clutching remnants of Ozzy's life. His old glasses, a leather jacket, stage props, reliving memories that she could not share with anyone. At the same time, she plotted, negotiated, and preemptively countered any potential leaks. Jack, caught between admiration and rebellion, wondered how long he could respect his mother's decisions before feeling compelled to act. Kelly, ever loyal, attempted to mediate, balancing emotional defense of Sharon with a recognition of Jack's frustrations. Amy, meanwhile, remained a quiet observer, her internal judgment forming but unspoken, a silent tension that added fuel to the smoldering fire. Leaks began to appear. Small, almost imperceptible snippets of footage surfaced online. Moments of Ozzy laughing, moments of struggle, moments that had been edited differently from Sharon's carefully curated version. Fans shared, commented, theorized, and obsessions ran rampant. The internet, insatiable as ever, dissected every frame, debating whether Sharon was protecting the family or manipulating perception. Headlines screamed, Osbourne family rift deepens, Jack threatens leak of Ozzy footage, Amy observes in silence, and Sharon clutches narrative after husband's death. The family's private grief had become global entertainment, a spectacle consumed obsessively by millions. Paramount Plus executives felt the pressure. Sharon's influence, combined with the obsessive fan attention, forced the streaming giant to tread carefully. Sources reported that every scene depicting Ozzy's vulnerability was scrutinized, legal approval sought, and PR strategies developed in tandem to frame the narrative in ways that aligned with Sharon's wishes. The tension between authenticity and control became a central debate behind the scenes. Some producers reportedly questioned whether the story could ever feel genuine if filtered so heavily, but Sharon's presence in negotiations was unwavering. She had fought for decades to maintain control over Ozzy's image, and now, even in his absence, she was determined to win the battle for his legacy. Fans, meanwhile, became detectives. The smallest public appearances were analyzed frame by frame, any hesitation, glance, or expression attributed to internal family tension. Every Instagram story was scrutinized. Every tweet was dissected. Some believed Sharon was hiding something darker. Some believed Jack was preparing rebellion. and some fantasized about Amy stepping into the spotlight with revelations that would shock the world. The narrative had become a complex web of speculation, obsession, and emotional investment. Inside the Osbourne household, the emotional strain began to show. Sharon, while commanding and calculating, occasionally faltered. Friends described moments when she broke down unexpectedly, sobbing over memories of Ozzy. Overwhelmed by grief, Jack, witnessing these moments, felt a mixture of empathy and frustration. Kelly, witnessing her brother's internal conflict, tried to maintain peace. Amy, watching silently,